Welcome into the Dirty Pocket. It has been a week off for this crazy crew, and I want to welcome in my partner in crime, the man, the myth, the legend, the scout, Mr. Daniel Kelly. How are we?
Hey, not too bad. I don't know if you guys can tell, I got it's a rare Tim Tebow jersey. I got an eBay as a Valentine's gift from my wife, Samantha. And so I'm wearing it tonight. I have a lot of Tebow jerseys, a lot of baseball jerseys, a lot of football jerseys. Love Tim Tebow, but that's what I'm sporting tonight in case anyone's wondering.
Well, hey, they can always watch on YouTube. They can check out the full Jacksonville Jaguars Duval gear. And, at the risk of sending this completely sideways, I'm not even going to talk about Tim Tebow. We know your affinity for him, but the jersey looks very good tonight. I, on the other hand, am just sitting in front of just a jersey from, well, you might have heard of them, the world champion Los Angeles Rams. So, yeah, it's been 2 weeks. I'm still riding the high of the Super Bowl.
Oh, I suppose so. I mean, you're a little tinted blue on the screen. We thought maybe you were feeling a bit blue because it's the off season.
Nope, it's just blue with absolute envy. Just Lombardi trophies, celebrations, Super Bowls. That's what we do in Los Angeles.
Well, enjoy it while you can, because you mortgage about the next 40 years to do it.
We'll see. We'll see what's about to go down. They are in negotiations this week, for those tuning in, with Aaron Donald to make him the highest paid defensive player in football, as he should be. Sorry, TJ Watt. Congratulations on the sacks, but we know who the best defensive player in the NFL is. I don't think anyone would argue. Yeah, we got to re-sign and extend Stafford, re-sign OBJ, Von Miller. It's going to be an interesting offseason for the Los Angeles Rams, or should I say the world champion Los Angeles Rams.
Wow.
I'm going to get the mileage out of that.
You must be unbearable to be around off camera.
Just when I know you're coming on, the only person that truly appreciates what it means to win a Lombardi for his squad.
It's true.
So yes, welcome into the Scout. That was the longest introduction ever, and as we oftentimes remind everyone, writes for Sports Illustrated for the Jets, Lions, NFL Draft HQ. And here we go. We're back at it on the podcast. And this week we need to talk about quarterbacks, because quarterbacks are dominating the news, as if that isn't the case in the NFL on any given week. They are really dominating the news in 2022. Have you ever seen anything like this, where there is so much unrest at the quarterback position across the league?
I haven't, Stacy, and I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier today in preparation for this show offline. I've never seen anything like this. I think I counted 19. You added a couple to the list as well. I mean, you're talking about a vast majority of the league right now, the quarterbacks. It's kind of up in the air, no pun intended, as far as how this is going to come together and what it's going to look like. But yeah, there's some interesting dynamics going on that we want to take a look at today.
All right, let's just use this time as we should, which is talking about the complete unrest with QB1 across the National Football League. And
nice hat. Nice hat.
It's kind of a reference to the sweet
hat. It's kind of poetic tonight for you to have that hat on.
Kind of poetic for sure. It goes well with this subject. We're looking at these quarterbacks, man, and I got to tell you, it's unbelievable. And I didn't even add to the list the New Orleans Saints, who, is it Jameis Winston? Is it Taysom Hill? You take a look at the vast majority of teams, and it's unlike any other time in NFL history at the QB1 position. So let's clip down on a few of these this week on the Dirty Pocket. Let's navigate this bad boy and talk about some of these quarterbacks. So let's start right with the guy that seems to be getting a lot of press. He's getting surgery on that shoulder. Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco. Or is he in San Francisco? And I want to caution you and everybody listening, we're going to try not to mention that guy Trey Lance or talk about him. Yes, please, because we know how the scout feels about him. And I think what's really evident about Trey Lance, I'll say it on this show,
La 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 la.
perfect, is that you are correct. And it's pretty clear he's not ready to take over an NFL team. And that's the rumors coming from every corner and circle
He was
in the
not.
National Football
He
League.
was not ready prior to the draft.
Agreed.
And they're just starting to figure it out now. It was all hype coming out of North Dakota. It was all hype. They wasted 3 number ones on him to bring him in. If you spend 3 number ones on a quarterback, you better have somebody like a Desean Watson at the end of that sentence, or somebody who's a gamer, who's a dynamic franchise type quarterback. You're not looking for a guy to come in and run your scout team. It's an embarrassment with the Trey Lance situation. But flipping gears for a second, as you talked about, Stacey, talking about Jimmy G, I don't think the 49ers can afford to let him get out from underneath that situation. I just don't see it. I mean, Trey Lance is going to completely and utterly expose John Lynch, the general manager out there, Kyle Shanahan, the head coach. They can't go with him. They just can't. And it's just almost like they're trying to avoid the truth of the situation by, they tried to do in the preseason by trying to sell us this Trey package, which is nothing more than a glorified, option package, doesn't do anything. And they keep trying to build him up, verbally. They keep trying to build him up in the media outside the field. I think John Lynch was just on there talking about him again at the combine, trying to build him up. And it's just nothing but hype. The reality is Jimmy G is a guy that's gotten the 49ers to a Super Bowl. 2 out of 3 years, he's got him to a Super Bowl. He got him to the NFC Championship this year. I don't know what the problem is with the San Francisco fan base. But I mean, when I sent a tweet about Trey Lance about 2 weeks ago, I got over 600,000 views on it. I mean, the 49ers fan base is so anti-Jimmy G. The guy is 38-14 as a starter. The guy is almost taking to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. They can't wait to run him out of town and get Trey Lance in there. But as the old saying goes, be careful what you wish for, 49ers Nation, because if you guys lose out on Jimmy G and you have Trey Lance, you won't even be able to spell playoffs with Trey Lance under center.
God, it's weird too, because here's Jimmy G, gets him to the NFC Championship with a busted up thumb. He guts it out. I don't think Jimmy G is a superstar by any stretch. Oh, we didn't talk about our drinks. And now for a brief diversion. What are we drinking tonight? You're clearly drinking Pepsi. I'm drinking water.
The
So
taste
we'll
of
move
a new
on.
generation.
Very nice. But on Jimmy G, here's a guy that gets him to the NFC Championship game. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's almost like the perfect fit for that Shanahan team.
He is.
Run heavy, play good defense. Man, they are on the verge, in my opinion, of making an epic mistake.
Yeah.
Do they trade him at this point?
I don't think they can afford to. I think they'll listen to offers and they'll dang him out there. But bottom line, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, I got to tell you, they should be huddled in the room coming up with spin with the media on what they need to do to keep Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. Add some pieces around him. My folks, again, they got to the NFC Championship game, gave my Rams a scare, and he was playing with a busted up thumb, and they had injuries all across the team on defense, on offense. Trent Williams was playing like on one leg. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Let's just throw him out and let's move this young kid in because they had to, because they moved way up in the draft, mortgaged the future. I got to tell you, Jimmy G watch is on here at the Dirty Pocket. It is on.
At least Trent Williams' helmet fits finally.
Okay, we covered that.
Don't get me started on that.
Subject
and how he
for
counted
another
his
day.
way out of Washington. Yeah, don't get me started on that.
I love it. Okay, let's move along to another veteran, former NFL most valuable player, and also a Super Bowl quarterback, Matt Ryan in Atlanta. They come out today and say that they're not going to commit to him long-term, or excuse me, they fail to commit to him long-term. What happens in Atlanta? Are they in the market for a quarterback in this draft?
Yeah, I think they are in the market. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons are kind of a weird dynamic when you watch them. It seems to be kind of a younger team with a younger coach, with a quarterback that's long in the tooth, a veteran quarterback. Doesn't really seem to fit in there. I have never been a Matt Ryan fan since the time he came into the league. I think I mean, I'm just not. I mean, don't get me started on Matt Ryan, but I just think that, he is just not near. I mean, to go from Michael Vick to Matt Ryan is like going from, a Pepsi and a smile to going to like, maybe like some kind of generic soda or something.
Sam's Club Cola.
Yeah, that sugarless, in the store. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that at all. I think that the Falcons definitely are in the market for a quarterback. I think they need to make a change there, but they may not be able to get their hands on either Malik Willis or Matt Corral. Being down a few picks in the first round, I think both those guys are gone by the fourth pick.
Wow. So this may be the end of an era, or at least we're looking at probably a lame duck season out of Matt Ryan.
It's that whole thing with the Falcons situation is a bad situation right now. I just it's a real funky type of chemistry they have there in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, Calvin Ridley wanted out.
Basically,
I want out. So
Calvin Ridley, I wrote an article about him for SI Jets. Don't get me started on that.
We're saving wide receivers for another time.
Yeah. Calvin Ridley is so incredibly overrated. Get out a highlighter and you can, yellow that out. Yeah, overrated next to Calvin Ridley's name. Thanks, but no thanks. Hard pass. Next.
It feels a lot like as we lead up to the draft, we got the scouting combine this week. It feels a lot like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic for a lot of teams. Like if you're Atlanta and you want to move on from Matt Ryan, are you looking at Jimmy Garoppolo? Are you looking around at some of the available backups in the league, guys that we're eventually going to talk about, like a Marcus Mariota, like a Mitchell Trubisky? Are you looking, what are you looking to do? Because it's clear in Atlanta, you're talking about a rebuild at this point. And my God, that Super Bowl against the New England Patriots, 28-3, is going to loom as a devastating black mark on the Atlanta Falcons franchise.
And who was the offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons for that game?
I do believe that was one of your favorite coaches, Mr. Kyle Shanahan, who is now in San Francisco talking about unloading Jimmy Garoppolo after 2 trips to an NFC Championship and a Super Bowl. Okay.
And trading 3 number 1s for a scout team quarterback.
For Trey Lance. God, what a mess.
What would it become? What would Mike Shanahan done without John Elway? Would we even know Kyle Shanahan's name? I mean, really? I mean, he made his career. I mean, because Mike Shanahan got fired from the Raiders, went to Denver, and Elway basically made his resume, and the Shanahan names lived on ever since.
See, I like Kyle Shanahan, and we're not going to turn this into a Kyle Shanahan conversation because we know how the scout feels. I think Shanahan is a good coach, but there's a lot to be said. He's definitely never had the kind of quarterback that I think he wants. I think the closest one is Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's the strangest part of this story. And again, if we talked about Matt Ryan and the Falcons, what do they take a look at Garoppolo? That's not much of a change in dynamic for their franchise. So let's move on to a younger guy at the quarterback position, a guy that I actually like. I don't think that he's top tier, not yet. He hasn't shown us much of that, but former Heisman Trophy winner Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, he's playing on a 5th-year option. The Browns are not talking extension with him. What's happening in Cleveland with that roster? Are they looking to draft a quarterback in the draft?
They could be. I'm not sure. I mean, Baker Mayfield was the guy. It's just really strange. I'm kind of like you. I like him. And I don't know. I think Cleveland really needs to rethink that one and keep him around, because I don't know who they would bring in that would be, a better solution for them. And I'm not sure that he's really the issue there either.
Yeah.
I don't think he is.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I have similar sentiment to that. The Cleveland Browns are starting to remind me of the Dallas Cowboys Northeast. Like, they bring in good players. They've got some real, I mean, that running game with Nick Chubb and, even the wide receivers, they had OBJ, they have Jarvis Landry. They've got a defense with a lot of top talent on it. Can't seem to get over the hump. And it looks like Baker's the guy that's going to take the brunt for that. Now, do I think Baker is Peyton Manning or Tom Brady? No, I don't. I think he's got a little Brett Favre-esque, a little bit of that in him. But all early feedback is that the Cleveland Browns are not looking at a long-term relationship with Baker Mayfield. He may be in a lame duck season in 2022.
And he fits that team. He fits the DNA of that team as well. Yeah, that's a strange situation. I mean, Samantha and I, we went for the GM's job in Cleveland in 2017, and back when they were winless. And they've had a nice turnaround of sorts. Going to this analytics system that they run in Cleveland now, and they've had a nice turnaround, making the playoffs last year and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I just there's something missing there. I'm with you as far as just like in Dallas, there's something missing as far as a cohesion and chemistry on that team. I mean, when you look at the Cleveland Browns, for those of us who are old enough to remember the dog pound, the Cleveland Browns in the 1980s, when you look at those Brown teams, they were a team that gelled together around Bernie Kosar. When you look at this team, it just feels like you said, Stacy, it feels like a piece of the puzzle here, one over here like Dallas, one over here, but none of them fit together, and they don't glue together, and they don't come together as a team.
Yeah, it's just a really odd dynamic. And of course, like everything in the NFL, that's going to slide to the quarterback and Baker Mayfield. And look, he didn't have his best season, but I think it's very much worth a reminder that he was playing with an injured torso, his shoulder. I mean, he played injured the vast majority of the season. And the Browns, as late as this afternoon, were saying, yeah, we'll talk about that extension down the road type thing. Not common when you're in love with a quarterback. They're usually getting that extension in place before that fifth-year option.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And Baker Mayfield, he is exactly the type of quarterback that will go somewhere else and he'll play another 7, 8, 10 years at a fairly high level. And the Cleveland Browns will be like, what did we do with Mayfield? And they'll be sitting there with 3, 4, 5 journeyman quarterbacks in the meantime, watching the playoffs at home on TV, wondering, what did we do with that one? We should have re-signed him. This is a pivotal moment for the Browns. And especially, you have to show, if you want to keep a quarterback happy, you have to show him the love and you have to do something. Because, I mean, the Dallas Cowboys made the same mistake when Jerry Jones played around with paying everybody back but Dak Prescott. And it was a bad look.
yeah, it's definitely going to have an impact on the vibe there. Although I will say this, if there was ever a quarterback with a chip on his shoulder and with enough tude to get through this by betting on himself, that's Baker Mayfield.
Right.
He's done it his whole career.
Yeah,
He's done it his whole career. Okay, so let's move into a world you're all too familiar with and fond of. It's not probably as obvious to the naked eye, but Taylor Heinicke, you believe to be the kind of talent that the Washington Commanders, I know how much you love that. I'm going to have to keep saying it because what else do we do? Taylor Heinicke and the Washington Commanders, is he the right guy
Yes.
for Ron Rivera?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I stand by Taylor Heinicke because he fits this team. We talk about DNA of a football team. He fits this team. He is extremely competitive. He is extremely passionate. He plays with a lot of heart. He is the least of the problems in Washington right now. You can say the name. I'm not going to. He is the least of the problems right now. That defense is softer than tissue paper. What an embarrassment for anybody who ever played or was alongside Mike Ditka and Buddy Ryan, like Ron Rivera was in Chicago all those years with the 85 Bears. And looking at that defense they have fielded in Washington, It was so soft. It's like Cleveland we talked about. Baker Mayfield's taking the brunt of it, just like Taylor Heineke is in Washington. But that's at least the problems. And it's interesting because Heineke's another guy, just like Jimmy G in San Francisco, that even after Taylor Heineke came out of nowhere, I mean, he was on his sister's couch, and he came in there and he took over for Alex Smith, and he had that heroic game against Tom Brady in the playoffs in Tampa Bay when he lunged for the goal line. He had that beautiful game. And right. I mean, the ink was even dried in the Washington Post the next day, and the entire fan base was screaming for, give us anybody, give us Barabbas, give us anybody, give us anybody but Taylor Heineke. They wanted him out of town. It didn't matter if it was Aaron Rodgers or this or that or the other. They wanted anybody but Taylor Heineke. And I just question any fans of the fan base that talk like that, because anybody, I mean, they should be up in arms. Twitter should be lighting up like the 4th of July, talking about that tissue paper defense in Washington, those paper tigers on defense in Washington. That's what we need to be talking about, Washington, not Taylor Heineke. We need to shift the focus. This is soundbite time. We need to shift the focus from Taylor Heineke to talking about the embarrassment that Jack Del Rio coaches in Washington with that defense. They can't stop anybody. And it starts with Chase Young, who's the biggest embarrassment to put on a Washington uniform.
Well, and yeah, I mean, digressing a bit to just talking about the situation in Washington, they've got the other 2 young studs, high draft picks on the defensive line from Alabama that should be contributing. And that defense, it was
Jerron Payne has always been lazy. He was lazy in Alabama. Nick Saban had to poke him in the side to get him to even do anything in practice, from what I've been told from people. I mean, that defense. Now, Jonathan Allen's good. I like Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat knows how to get to the quarterback. But, yeah, there's some other liabilities there that, people talk about trading Chase Young. Gone. Get him out of there. I mean, I think he had before the knee injury. Now, people are going to say, aren't you be sensitive to the knee injury? Before the knee injury, 1.5 sacks, 15 tackles in 8-9 games.
Yeah. I had him as highly overrated and most likely to bust coming out of college that year.
Yeah, you're right, target out.
People thought I was.
He lacks the mean. He lacks the nasty. On the defensive line, he dances around. He plays touch tag too much. He finesses too much. He is nothing like the defensive ends we watched, the star defensive ends in the 80s, coming up. Yeah, I agree with you. Good assessment there on Chase Young.
So bouncing back to quarterback, your strong endorsement for Taylor Heineke.
Absolutely.
Into 2022.
Stick with him, yeah.
Would you be happy, as has been mentioned and rumored, if Jimmy Garoppolo lands with the Washington Commanders? There are those that feel Ron Rivera likes that idea.
Sure. Yeah, I like Taylor Heineke. I mean, that's my guy. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy G, I like Jimmy G a lot. I'm one of Jimmy G's biggest supporters in America.
Okay, so let's stay in the NFC East then for a couple minutes, and let's talk about Daniel Jones in New York. They go out, they get him an offensive-minded coach in Brian Daboll, who really took Josh Allen from, he's going to bust, to a guy that could very easily be an MVP consideration the last 2 seasons. And arguably should have been. Daniel Jones in New York, another one of these situations where he's moving into that 5th-year option piece and they have not extended him. Are the Giants making a mistake, or does Daniel Jones stay in New York and rebound under Daboll?
I think he rebounds under Brian Daboll. I think he does. I like Daniel Jones personally. I liked him when I looked at him in 2019 when I interviewed on Washington with the team president at the time, Bruce Allen. I wrote up an entire team report on Daniel Jones. I haven't spent any time evaluating him over the last 2 years, but I did like what I saw back then in 2019. And again, that's another situation where I think that's at least the problems they have out there. Now, Brian Daboll, what he's going to do is a thing he did with Josh Allen in Buffalo, is he's a very creative play caller, a very innovative play caller. He spreads the ball around to 5, 6, 7 targets, and you never know what to expect. Expect some of that with the Giants moving forward. I wasn't too sold on the hire. I love Brian Daboll. I recommended him to Bruce Allen in 2019 to take over after Gruden left. But the Giants are such a traditional and conservative organization that's so plain Jane and so vanilla over the years. I mean, they just play smash mouth football. Bring in a creative coach like Brian Daboll. I don't know how that fits. Just like I didn't like the fit with Justin Fields in Chicago. I didn't see that being a fit. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think you stick with Daniel Jones, because, it's like in dating and relationships. The grass isn't, we've got a football field behind me here. The grass is not always greener. We always want to move to a different quarterback and a different thing. But I remember, it takes time. It takes time for some of these quarterbacks to develop. And I don't think that he is the issue with the Giants. I think they have a lot of issues, but I don't think he's the issue.
Okay. Yeah, it's certainly with rumors swirling that the Giants are open to discussing trading Saquon Barkley, which I think is a good idea. And also the lack of just outside receiving threats in New York. If they could get him some help, Daniel Jones looks like a kid that has the talent. And with a new coach, I think it's almost a make or break year for him in terms of getting an extension and being the signal caller for the Giants moving forward.
Yeah, I
think that's it. So let's move to two guys that will forever be joined at the hip because they were drafted 1 and 2 just 4-5 seasons ago. Let's talk about Carson Wentz, who's on the verge of being cut after 1 year and several draft picks to trade to get him in Indianapolis. And also what the Detroit Lions might do with the guy picked just in front of him in that draft, Jared Goff. And we all know that you've been very high on them getting a replacement. You really like Malik Willis in this draft as somebody that Detroit should be taking a look at. But what say you on the Carson Wentz getting cut after 1 season in Indianapolis, after all the draft capital to get him? What say you, should the Lions keep Jared Goff in place? Because the last 8 games of the year, he looked good. And he did it with a less than ultra-talented supporting cast in Detroit.
Well, the Wentz situation, in Indianapolis, there's another situation that he never fit into the DNA of the Indianapolis Colts to begin with. I thought was a very strange trade from a chemistry standpoint. I didn't see that being a fit either. I don't know about you, but I didn't like the trade. So the fact that he hasn't fit in there doesn't surprise me. What does Indianapolis do going forward? That's a very good question. I'm sure they're going to end up with, it's just, I don't know. That's a real strange situation, to say the least.
There were rumors they were trying to get Phillip Rivers back on the phone towards the end of last season. I mean,
yeah, that's a real strange. I don't know how exactly that one's going to play out. I have a hard time reading that situation, Indianapolis. But and then flipping the script to what you talked about in Detroit, I don't see Jared Goff being a fit there whatsoever. I think that, when I watched some game tape last week, even writing the articles I wrote for SIL Lions, it was just remarkable to me how many open receivers that he missed or didn't even take a look at when he was in the pocket. Guys were running free and he was looking somewhere else. He does not seem comfortable whatsoever in that system or on the field. He seems really kind of jumpy back there. I think his confidence took a serious hit. From what happened with the Rams, now seeing them win the Super Bowl, this guy didn't be a hit to his ego even yet. He was up and down all season. The bottom line is, like Bill Parcells, the guy that hired me, used to say, you are what you say your record says you are. And, at 3-13-1, now granted, to Goff's defense, I mean, we got to give equal opportunity and fair play here and keep things real. Is that, I thought the Detroit Lions did a horrible job bringing in talent for him to throw to. If you're going to play in the NFL and you are going to field an NFL offense, and with those receivers they had there last year, and, it's incredible. I mean, they brought in guys off the street. Guys like, they traded for a guy from Denver, Trinity Benson, who never really played. They brought a guy in Josh Reynolds in. They brought these different people in that was just, I mean, these guys were like borderline street free agents to give, to have Goff throw to. Then they had Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round. Everybody makes a really big deal about him. I wrote him up last week. I mean, what receiver in the NFL could not catch 90 passes on 119 targets? And so they and most of the passes he caught were 5 yards, 6 yards, short passes. And he was tackled immediately, or he looked to run out of bounds on his own. And, so, I mean, they have no vertical threat whatsoever in Detroit. So in Goff's defense, he really never had a chance because he doesn't have like normal wide receivers to throw to. They can get deep and have a vertical game. I mean, I think 2 of the 4 top receivers in Detroit, I think TJ Hawkinson, this is all memory. I don't have anybody feeding me the information from the truck. I don't make $90 million basically running my mouth.
Only 89.
Right. Hold on. Let me tell me what you want me to say. But I mean, 2 of their top 4 receivers was a tight end. TJ Hawkinson was the second leading receiver of the team. 4 was Swift, I think, or the second or 4th one. I may have them mixed up, but I think those are the top receivers. When you have an NFL offense and 2 of your 4 top receivers are a tight end and running back, that just screams 3-13-1 to me, and it screams you're going to be in the basement for as many years as it takes before you can get guys in there that have a vertical passing game and can get deep. I mean, last year, I mean, they had chances at different guys, and we talked about that in previous shows, and they didn't take them. The guys that can get deep. This year, there's guys in there too that can get deep. But you got to have a deep passing game. You've got to have a deep passing game. I mean, I wrote up an article for SIL Lines about Christian Kirk, the slot receiver from the Arizona Cardinals. If they brought him in, he would instantly be the best receiver they've had, there in the last couple of seasons.
They don't have anybody.
Nothing like that. The guy that can stretch the field vertically like that from a slot position. That would create a dilemma for Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's not really an outside receiver. He's more of a slot guy, but he's really not that great of a slot guy either because he doesn't have any yards after the catch ability. People were talking about comparing Amon-Ra St. Brown to Deebo Samuel. I don't remotely understand that comparison. Samuel's like a physical running back. Amon-Ra is like a very diminutive wide receiver who's trying to run in between the tackles, and he's nothing like Samuel. So the jack of all trade type of players, but Christian Kirk would be a great addition to the Detroit Lions. The problem is they just don't want to go and spend the money to get guys like that in there. But Goff does not have anybody to throw to, so I don't know if we've really seen the accurate representation of him. Because to your point, Stacey, I know you like Goff from the Rams. Yeah. To your point, we really haven't seen. Goff have a fair chance in Detroit. And I'm not saying that he's all that in a bag of chips, but we just haven't seen him. I mean, if you give a quarterback, you don't give him any real weapons, legitimate deep threats to throw the ball to. I mean, what would happen if Patrick Mahomes had that cast of characters in Detroit?
Yeah, he'd run around and he'd make a lot of highlights, but he wouldn't be without Kelsey, without Cheetah, without all, yeah.
Detroit wouldn't make the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback.
I don't think so either because there's so many problems on both sides of the ball. But let me throw this at you. If you're going to shuffle chairs on the deck of the Titanic in the quarterback world in the NFL this year, I think 2 teams that if they're going to get rid of their quarterbacks should look at Goff that would fit into their system because it isn't all dependent on the quarterback is the Indianapolis Colts, where they've got a couple of nice receivers. They have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. They have a solid defense. Goff can fit right into that scheme with a guy like Frank Reich, who's a very offensive-minded and really do some damage in that division. And then possibly the Cleveland Browns, if they're going to move on from Baker Mayfield. Fairly similar situation. But if I'm Goff and the Colts call me or, there's a trade in the works, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think he's somebody that could actually elevate his game. Look,
great points.
People like to bash on Jared, but he took the Rams to a Super Bowl. He had several playoff wins, big wins on the road, and even played in his last loss against the Packers with a busted up thumb and played really well. So he's not Peyton Manning. He's not that level, but I think he's a very good quarterback, on that next tier down if you put the right pieces around him. Okay.
Good point.
Some guys that I think are just doomed to backup roles moving forward. Teddy Bridgewater in Denver. Broncos are looking for a quarterback. They're making no bones about it. And of course, all the rumors are that guy in Green Bay. I don't see it happening. Yeah, I know. I'm not even going to get you going. I'm not even going to bring up his name. I don't think he's ever going to, if he plays football anywhere, it's going to be for the Packers. I don't think he's going anywhere. It's a big game every year. But the Broncos are now looking at this draft, and they've got to be looking at these quarterbacks. But I got to tell you, man, as stated, and it's a subject for another show, I wouldn't touch any of these quarterbacks in the first round. None of them. And the Broncos are in desperate need of one after the Drew Lock situation bombed out and Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, do they go out and get a Jameis Winston? Do they go look at a Marcus Mariota? Do they bring in a Mitch Trubisky? What do the Broncos do? Because their defense was top notch.
Yeah, I think they trade for Kirk Cousins. That's that's where I'm going. I'm going with Kirk Cousins. And the reason why is because guys in the NFL, they operate inside this box called this is who we're familiar with. And the GM in Denver is George Patton. He comes from Minnesota. Minnesota's got a whole change in regime up there, new GM, new head coach, new everything. And it's all about familiarity. And I think that Patton makes the play. I wrote an article about months ago, way before it even came out as a rumor by anybody else. But I see Cousins going to the Denver Broncos.
So who does that leave with the Minnesota Vikings then? They've got a brand new head coach who the Vikings stole off Sean McVay's staff in Los Angeles. Is it then the Vikings that are, in your mind, they're going to shift to somebody in this draft? They're going to bring in a quarterback that can fit with the new coach?
Well, they could. They could. I could see Carson Strong from Nevada going there.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, let's play matchmaker. Come on,
that's what this is all about.
Let's play a little jingle here.
Roulette, man.
Let's play a little jingle here about matchmaker, right? So if George Patton is, you remember the old memory game where you turn over, it's an apple and an apple and like a peach and a peach, and you have to remember if George Patton is related to Kirk Cousins from Minnesota, then the new GM in Minnesota is from where? Cleveland.
You think I don't think Baker Mayfield. I don't know about that one.
That's where he's a GM. And I tell you what, if the Browns want to move Baker Mayfield for the best price, guess who they're going to call? The guy who they recommended to the Vikings ownership. And just like how the Rams, right? Rams made sure that they got Stafford and they worked that whole deal out and everything with Brad Holmes and stuff. These are the way things work, because some guys get promotions, with a little asterisk next to it, like pick up the phone when we call. And it could be one of those situations where the new GM in Minnesota could be on the hook basically to do whatever the Cleveland Browns want him to do, which could include Baker Mayfield. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's a twist.
Yeah, I know. It's just on this show.
There is a twist. Okay, a couple of rapid fire ones for you. We don't have to go too deep on, but God, the quarterback roulette this year is nuts. Russell Wilson, he stays in Seattle. True?
I think so. I think in the end he stays there. Yeah,
he's a Seahawk. He's not going anywhere. Tom Brady stays in retirement. True?
No.
False. I think he comes back. That's a prediction you've already made.
Yeah, I think he comes back. I do. I just don't see him. They're going to have to carry him off the field.
Okay. Sam Darnold, Carolina Panthers. Is he the starting quarterback in September?
Possibly.
Oh, man.
Possibly.
Started strong, faded fast.
I mean, I could see it. I could see him.
Don't know what happened to that kid. I just don't know what happened to him from this time at USC. And then, of course, it's the curse of the Jets, I guess.
The Jets happened to him.
Yeah. I mean, it's just he just had so much talent in college to see that fall apart that way. Miami Dolphins and Tua, brand new coach. Mike McDaniels comes from the Shanahan coaching tree, which you love. Does Tua start the season as the starting quarterback, and is he the long-term answer in Miami?
I think so.
Okay. McDaniels salvages what many have felt was some critical errors on his part, or critical.
Yeah, that's another one, Stacey. That's another one. Just like we talk about the 49ers fan base with Jimmy G, just like we talk about with the Washington fan base with Taylor Heineke. This is another fan base that doesn't like Tua since day one. And every time I look at him, he's making plays. And so I don't know. I think, but again, remember, this is a league of relationships. And let's say, for example, right, if Jimmy G does get traded, okay, one of the places you would look at would be the Miami Dolphins because of the relationship with the new head coach down in Miami. And the other place might, right. And the other place you might look at would be the New York Jets, which has also been rumored online because of the relationship there with Robert Saleh. So that's possible too. So that's the way you when you look at these different moves and potential moves, you look at, okay, who knows who at this place or that place, because typically those who know each other are the ones that end up doing business together.
Okay. I think that's a great point, Miami. That came out of nowhere, and I love that idea. I could see that happening. Okay, so we're going to play a game of starter or backup. I'm going to give you a name. I just want to know if you think they're going to be a starter or they're a backup this next season. Marcus Mariota.
Possible starter.
Where?
That could be an Indianapolis thing too.
I like that. I like that with Jonathan Taylor. I like that idea.
Jameis
Winston.
I like him.
I like Mariota. Great coaching staff. I still think he's got something in him. Okay, Jameis Winston.
Backup.
New Orleans? Or
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Mitch Trubisky.
4-string.
Oh my God!
Say anybody.
That it's rumored he's the hottest.
Hey, do me a favor. Write down the time right now so you can do the soundbite here. Okay.
I already got it.
Mitch Trubisky. Okay. Does the entire league do they not have a memory of just how bad this guy was in Chicago? I mean, he goes up and sits up in Buffalo for a year. I mean, this is like these are the same people on social media who sit there and come at me all day, every day about Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and Trey Lance and these different people. Kenny Pickett's the newest one on the list. And all day today, people are tweeting me about Kenny Pickett and all this stuff. And these are the same people that all of a sudden like Mitch Trubisky, okay? Sam Howell, which is like the second coming of Mitch Trubisky, okay? Mitch Trubisky is a low-energy, lethargic, poor leader who's a very mechanical quarterback. When I think about him being the hottest, people say that's the hottest quarterback out there. I feel like I'm on an airline and I need to ask the flight attendant for an air sickness bag.
I tell you, there's so much hate for Matt Nagy that they just think that they tanked that guy's career. Okay, I got two more names for you, starter or backup. Kyle Trask.
Starter.
Buccaneers.
That's right.
Takes over for the GOAT, huh?
Well, absolutely. Well, I got something to share with you here. This is really going to light people on fire in social media. Get ready, everybody. Get ready, everybody. He was my QB3 last year in the 2021 NFL draft, behind Justin Fields, my QB1, Mac Jones, my QB2, and the QB3 was Kyle Trask. Notice I didn't say anything about Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, or Trey Lance. Kyle Trask, I had him rated above all three of those quarterbacks. Trask is a guy who had a productive career with the Florida Gators. He's unorthodox. He is definitely unorthodox. So he's be one of those guys that kind of flings it upside armed or does something a little bit different like Brett Favre used to. I'm not saying he has an arm like Favre, but yeah, Kyle Trask, a season behind the GOATs. Tom Brady has that chance to learn there. And I think he steps right in and takes over that situation. I think Tampa Bay is going to go with him ultimately.
You heard it here first on the Dirty Pocket. I love it. Okay, here's a big one, man. Here's a big one. Starter or backup? Desean Watson.
Starter.
Where?
That's the question. That's the question right now. Desean Watson is the most dynamic player in the National Football League. This guy was a passing leader in 2020. It all depends when the legal issues get, when all that sorts itself out. I'm not going to get into all that. But you know what? If the New York Jets, I wrote an article about this for SI Jets. If the New York Jets were smart, That's the guy they should go get. That's the guy that was rumored to be going to the Jets before all this legal stuff started. I mean, because the Jets have to do something. If they don't do something, dynamic and something different and something, game changing, they're not going to get out of the basement anytime soon in that division, especially with the New England Patriots in there with Mac Jones and the Buffalo Bills you touched on with Josh Allen and that. And then you got two as a wild card, the Miami Dolphins, depending how they do. But it's a straight uphill climb for the New York Jets. They have got to go get somebody that can make a difference. And, Desean Watson could be that guy. I mean, let's put it this way. If I'm the general manager of the New York Jets, Desean Watson's the guy.
My God, I tell you what, that would be a bombshell prior to the draft or during the draft.
My specialty.
Yeah, you're kind of good at those. And
yeah,
I tell you, if he goes another season and doesn't play, folks, I think the Desean Watson era in the NFL is over. I really do. And his problems will have been too big at that point for him to overcome. Okay, we didn't even have time to get into the quarterbacking situation in Philadelphia or in New Orleans, both of which I think stink to high heaven in both cases. So I think those are absolutely just abysmal situations. So I'm going to throw a wild card at you, and it's going to be a teaser as we segue into next week on the Dirty Pocket. You're crunching tons of film. You're writing tons of articles. Your number one quarterback in this draft, that if you're a team and you are desperate and you've got all the other pieces in place, are you listening, Denver Broncos? Between their wide receivers and their defense, they've got all the other pieces in the place. Who's the one quarterback they should run up and do what they can to get in this draft?
Malik Willis.
You really believe that?
Absolutely. He's my QB1. And Matt Corral's my QB2, and outside of that, there's a drop off from there, and then Carson Strong would be my QB3, and then Desmond Ridder would be QB4, and then Bailey Zappi be QB5 at this point. And Willis he's the guy. He's the guy. He's going to be the most dynamic runner we've seen come out of the draft since Lamar Jackson. He's along the lines of a Michael Vick. I'm not saying he's as fast or as elusive as Vick, but this guy can move around, and he's got an NFL arm to him, and he's dynamic. I don't think there's any way possible. I mean, if Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell want to save their job, if they don't want to hear their names called on next Black Monday, they've got to go with Malik Willis at number 2 in Detroit long term. That's got to be the answer. He'll be the most dynamic player Detroit's had since Barry Sanders in that stadium, as far as like being someone who's a dynamic player. But yeah, that would be if the Denver Broncos can somehow work a deal with Jacksonville to get up to 1 or something, that would be the deal to have. I mean, Malik Willis is so much better than Trey Lance. It's not even it's laughable. That's how much better he is than Trey Lance. And so, I mean, he's a guy that can beat you with his feet. He can beat you with his arm, and he's dynamic enough. Now, I don't see him being a fit in Denver per se. I mean, ever since the first time I saw Malik Willis play, I thought Detroit Lions, he just looked like a Lion to me. As far as the Detroit Lions concerned, it just was the first image that went to my mind. Just like last year when I saw Mac Jones, the only thing I could think of was New England Patriots from the first time I saw him play at Alabama. I even wrote a pre-draft an article that he's going 15 to New England before they even sent the card in. I mean, I just saw it. I said that's the guy in New England.
Mac Jones.
Oh, I do too. A lot.
Yeah.
A lot, and love his ball placement. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of but I go back to that Kirk Cousins thing. I think that Cousins could be the guy just because of the relationship with the GM, George Patton.
Well, there you have it, folks. It's in the bag. It was quarterback roulette in the dirty pocket. My God, we could have talked for another hour. There's so much going on with NFL quarterbacks. Like you mentioned it, we were texting earlier today. I've never seen an offseason like this where so many quarterback rooms and positions are in flux. It's unbelievable. It's going to be
crazy.
One interesting draft, man.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're teeing up the scout who's been digging in deep by position. He loves those quarterbacks. We're going to talk a little bit about that moving forward here on the Dirty Pocket too. We're also putting some things together for an NFL draft show that we've been talking about. So some good stuff coming up. Stay tuned. Like, subscribe. It helps out our show. And if you want to help out a couple of bums who love the game, this is your opportunity. Help out the Dirty Pocket. For the writer, Sports Illustrated, for the Lions, the Jets, Daniel Kelly, and myself, host of the Gridiron Icon podcast, we thank you. Scout, any parting words this week?
Kyler Murray's not worth $256 million. He's 22, 23, and 1 as a starter. He's 0-1 in the playoffs. Are you kidding me? 6 years, $256 million or something like that. Parting shot. Are you kidding me? If I was a general manager at Arizona, I would call Kyler Murray into my office and just so I could laugh. Just hearing that. I mean, even Larry Fitzgerald's dad comes out and says that he's spoiled. I mean, come on, do something. I mean, it's bad enough we got to listen to Aaron Rodgers run his mouth up in Green Bay. But Aaron Rodgers, he's had an accomplished career, okay? But come on, man, you got a losing record and you're trying to get paid a $250 million with a losing record. I mean, you got to do something first. You got to win a playoff game. You got to do something, Kyler. That's my parting shot for today. If I'm an NFL GM, Kyler Murray is a hard pass.
I got to tell you, we're going to start a new tradition on the Dirty Pocket with parting shots.
Parting
That's going to be something. I didn't want to lead with Kyler Murray, so I'm glad you saved it to the parting shot because we could have done a whole show. But I will say this to add to my parting shot. If there was one player I would turn and burn on and trade tomorrow, it's Kyler Murray. Great talent, certainly can play the game. He's a talented kid. There's no way he's worth that money. I don't see him ever winning a Super Bowl. I'm sorry, he's too small for the NFL. And we saw it against the Rams this year. So parting shots from us are on their way to the Arizona Cardinals. Do what you can. Move the kid. Pick up something. Build your team. They just extended Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury today, so they're there for the long haul. Good parting shot, Scout.
Well, it's interesting because you notice what ownership did in Arizona. They gave the extension to the head coach and to the GM, but not to Kyler Murray.
Yeah. Man,
that says something. Ransom. That says something. And I tell you what, whatever team in the NFL, buyer beware. That should come with a sticker like a used car. Buyer beware on this one, because I tell you what, these guys like these Aaron Rodgers of the world and these Kyler Murrays and these kinds of people that make themselves the centerpiece focal point of a team, man. I tell you what, they are not leaders. This guy comes out under contract and scrubs his social media of any recognition of him being associated with the Arizona Cardinals. Who in their right mind in the NFL would want to trade for a guy who can just turn on your organization on a dime? A hard pass. I think the entire NFL should say no to Kyler Murray and teach him a lesson. You got to have a winning record before you make those kind of demands. You got to win some playoff games before you make those kind of demands. You got to do something more than you've done when you come into the room and you ask for $250 million. I mean, it's bad enough that Patrick Mahomes got $500 million, but he's in the AFC Championship game every year. Kyler Murray, he's watching at home.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and again, here we go extending the show, but if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, I'm dialing the Houston Texans and going straight across, Desean for Kyler, although I really believe Kyler will say, forget it, I'm going to go play baseball. I honestly believe that. But I would, in a heartbeat, we'll give you ours, you give us yours. Let's rock this thing.
What an upgrade. Arizona, somebody should call 911.
And that's in the NFC West.
Arizona, somebody in Arizona should call 911 because the Cardinals would have stole somebody if they got Desean Watson over Kyler Murray.
DeAndre Hopkins. You think DeAndre Hopkins would be pretty happy to get his old teammate back?
Oh, I bet you he's pushing
Green.
for it. I love Hopkins. Yeah, that would be a very interesting situation. All of a sudden, the Arizona Cardinals would probably be the favorites for the Super Bowl if they landed Desean Watson and got rid of the guy who thinks he can play.
Zach Ertz, tight end. Their defense has a bunch of young studs. There's one problem. They are in the NFC West, which is the home of the world champion Los Angeles Rams. So
how long are we going to have to hear that?
Every episode for the next year because we're running this thing. If we defend it, another year.
That's
okay,
great.
folks, this is us signing off. Our parting shots leaked into double time. Join us every week. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on all the usual channels, Twitter, Instagram. Follow the Scout at Sports Illustrated Jets, Sports Illustrated Lions, and whatever it takes, book.com. You can find me at Gridiron Icon and gridironicon.com. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and from the Scout. We will see you next week.
Take care.